Hey guys, welcome back to the fitness podcast. I am joined today by Mr. Adam Hayley. It's my first solo pod, so I'm here without Nathan and Emily. So Adam actually had a huge impact on my career in the very beginning, also to this day, to be honest, with the OT, and as well as that, the early days of RNT. But we want to go. Obviously, people know you a lot now, from social media and what you do. But I want to go back to the early days. Like, let's say, who was Adam in high school? That's a big question I want to ask you.
Yeah, that's a good one. Adam in high school was a dick. Like genuinely. Yeah, completely different to how I am now in terms of I was that whole like class clown. So in English, for example, I had a deal with my teacher that I would have to give my name. And then as long as I sat at the front, I was allowed to sleep for the entire lesson. As long as I didn't disrupt people. So I had the green light to just turn up, give my name at register and sleep. In French, they gave me a laptop, told me to sit at the very back of the class and just do whatever the hell I wanted. Again, just to keep me entertained. So yeah, I was at school, like not good. Loved sport and stuff like that was, football, rugby, boxing, but academically, very bored. Just could never find anything that would like pick my interest, and then my attention would wander. And then just had one of those realizations eventually in that, maybe this isn't such a good way to go. And thankfully, it's pretty much as soon as I'd left school at 16, I fell into this whole fitness thing, and we can kind of come to that in a second. And, just lit a fire, and I just loved like researching and stuff. But yeah, Adam years back, like teenage school Adam was waste of time, basically, like not productive, completely different to what you would see now.
Completely. I mean, what I've seen now, and obviously since probably like 2018, but they do say people like, in high school and when they're a lot younger, when they're quite mischievous, they come around like 15 years later. I hear that quite a lot.
Yeah, I got this theory, and maybe it's an excuse on my part, but I think the schooling system in the UK, and I know this is, maybe going a bit too deep straight from the off, but it suits those that have a great memory recall. Yep. It suits those that can sit still, intake information, whether they're interested in it or not, and recall it. If you fall outside of those guidelines, there's not a lot that they can do. We're talking like, general average school. So for me, I don't learn well from just, being spoken to in a group of 30. It just didn't resonate with me. So I lost interest, and then, it was just, just do whatever I could to keep myself entertained. Whereas now, like I've realized I just learn in a different way. Like I can study things really in depth, but I have to see the relevancy to it. Whereas in school, I couldn't always see the relevancy at the time. And then the other thing is that I realized that I'm just not great at listening, which is great for a podcast, eh? On a serious note, like I like reading. Yep. If they gave me subjects that had, I found fascinating, and just gave me a book and a quiet space, I'm an introvert. So I do really, really well if I don't have a lot of like noise and traffic and stuff around. Whereas when you put me in the class atmosphere with loads of people, noises, stuff like that, I just super distracted. So yeah, it's funny how, as you say, it kind of like 10, 15 years later, it can come full circle. And for me, I just had to realize, A, I need the relevancy to spend the mental energy on something. And B, I need to figure out how I learn best, which is not in a group setting.
Which is interesting. I'm actually bringing in one of my teachers to this podcast, and we're actually going to discuss the education system, because I went through something similar where I couldn't, like the recall side of things. I was like terrible at this. Also, I didn't read as much when I was younger compared to now. Like I'm a book junkie now, which we're very, very similar in that situation. It's a bit weird where how things have flipped over, but we're kind of lucky in that sense, because we kind of found out like, okay, this is what we like and this is what we're going to go for. But there's a lot of people out there, in my opinion, kids who leave maybe school at 16, they may not be in the same position. 15 years later, they're probably struggling, right? And I think that's, again, it's quite deep already in the very beginning, but I think that's something that, I want to discuss with my teachers going forward.
Yeah, massive, like, purpose, why, and I'm certainly no expert in it, but I think there's a lot of people that just don't have that burning passion. They haven't figured it out. Which really sucks. We seem to have been fortunate to find it, and again, relatively early on. Mm-hmm. Whereas I know some people that just float through life hoping that at 50 years old, they're just going to suddenly fall into the thing that they enjoy doing. I can't think of anything worse than, you know, waking up at 50 and being like, how the hell did I get here? Yeah, if there is anybody younger listening to this, like, you really want to dig deep and just test loads of things and find out, you know, what floats your boat, what do you enjoy, what can you study, what can you become an expert at, and then, you know, if you can do those things, chances are you're probably going to do okay in life.
100%. You mentioned purpose there. You found your purpose quite early, I believe, right? I remember when I met you for the first time, you kind of gave me a bit of a backstory on how you got into fitness. But I think obviously for the listeners out there, it would be good to like get into why fitness was your kind of true calling in the moment. And obviously bodybuilding was your first thing there. Because obviously when at that age, sports is usually quite a big thing. I know gym right now is a huge thing. But let's say back then, gym wasn't always the biggest thing, but obviously for you, you found it. So talk us through like that period and again, how that's obviously impacted you now, 10, 15 years later.
Yeah. So when I mentioned that I was a dick when I was younger, I also had anger management problems and stuff like that. For me, sport was like my outlet. The main three, as I mentioned, rugby, football, boxing, used to do those. Ended up with something called Osgood-Schlatter's disease, which is actually relatively common in people that train a lot. It's like overuse of the quad muscles. But when I started speaking to surgeons and stuff about the Osgood-Schlatter's, they said, oh, actually, we're not fussed about that. We've done x-rays and we've realized you've got this thing called Blount's disease, which is where the outside shin bone grows faster than the inside. So if we don't do something, you're going to go over on your ankles. So the long and the short of it is at 15, I had to have both my legs surgically broken, like wedge of bone out, bigger wedge of fake put in, pinned, plated up, in a wheelchair, non-weight bearing for 8 weeks. Obviously, couldn't do any sports. When I started to kind of rehab again, contact sports were just out the question. And my legs were super, super skinny. And, you know, I'm not the tallest person in the world. I'm 5'6". So I joined my local gym when I was like 15. It was just a local Virgin Active. And the goal of it was just get stronger at walking again, and then just put a little bit more muscle back on my legs so they didn't look like little sticks. And from there, I was bitten by the bug of training, like strength training, challenges and stuff of it. Hugely passionate, and I got some pretty quick results. And then from there, I had some friends ask if I could coach them, so I coached them for free. That's what then led me thinking, wow, like I love this thing. Saved up, I started working as a lifeguard, saved up my wages from working as a lifeguard to pay for my level 2 certificate for gym instructing. And then I persuaded that gym that I was a lifeguard at to allow me to do 20 hours at the pool and then 20 hours gym instructing. And then from there moved into, into proper PT. So that's kind of what got me into it. Was like, initially, I guess, forced into it from like a movement perspective, and then really just loving the process, seeing the progressions, doing it for free for a few people, and realizing this would be a great way to get paid. You know, I may not make a lot of money out of it, but I'd love this. So yeah, that was that. And then the competitive side of things was, back when I did the other sports, you know, there was always a goal, a purpose, competition. Whereas when I was just training by myself, there was, you know, it was hitting PBs, but there was no real like accountability and stuff like that. So somebody said to me, oh, you should think about competing in bodybuilding. And this was back way before Instagram. So I remember when I mentioned I was going to compete and I started prepping, I was looked at like an alien. Like now it's cool, right? If you compete, it's like, it's the cool thing. There was no bikini class, like it didn't even exist. And I remember having like a girl come up to me in the gym and say, oh, I hear you're going to do one of those bodybuilding shows. And I was like, yeah. She goes, it looks disgusting. So it was really like, back then it was so like outside the norms.
I mean, the way you said it, like now you'd put in your bio that you've competed in bodybuilding, right?
Yeah, it's something to like hang your hat on. Like it's something to be proud of if you've competed now. Whereas back then it was like, you're a weirdo. I remember trying to explain the concept to my parents. Like my dad has never come to any of my shows. He couldn't get his head around it. You know, he was like, so let me get this right. You're going to eat as much food as possible so that you're uncomfortable and force feeding. then you're basically going to controllably starve yourself to stand on a stage in underwear and have other men judge whether you look good. And I'm like, okay, well, when you word it like that, sounds a bit weird. But essentially, yes. And he's like, okay, good luck with that.
He's like, I've never seen you again in terms of shows.
Yeah, it was, you know, when you word it like that, it's strange. But as you say, you know, since social media and stuff now, it's just so much more accepted. It's something to be proud of for some people. Kind of funny because I now kind of cringe at it, but hey, that just,
it's happened, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting. So obviously then bodybuilding came into play, and then obviously, how did you feel about, you know, you got into personal training at a very young age, right? I think personal training, a lot of people don't realize, and again, if any personal trainers are listening to this, it does require a lot of, you know, social skills, right? At 16, you leave like high school and you're like, okay, I'm getting into this. How was it for you working with people most likely a lot older than you, right?
Yeah. So my first ever client was the CFO or COO at the time of Costa Coffee. Like that was my first client. Yeah, I remember him walking into the gym. I had my feet up on the gym desk, and I remember him walking. His name's Andy Marshall, and I remember him walking in the gym, looked miserable as hell, and said, "I've been told by one of my friends that you seem like a good trainer. I hate exercise, but I've been told by my heart surgeon that if I don't do something about it, they're going to have to open me up. I've got calcium deposits, you know, plaque in my arteries, high blood pressure, thickening of the artery walls, blah, 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 blah. So I need this." So anyway, so we immediately book in a session for the following day. I book in an hour, and, you know, I'm still relatively new to training. I made it clear that I said to him, like, I'm not that experienced. I definitely have not dealt with this before, but I can just get you moving a little bit. He was done within like 11 minutes. We literally put him on a treadmill on just a very small incline, and that was it. And he was done. My next session with him is a really embarrassing thing, actually, to admit. You know, I was really new to this and new to scheduling and, you know, being a professional. I actually missed it. So he booked in a paid session with me, and I just started getting a call on my phone from the gym, and I call, and it was my first ever PT session, like off shift, and I wasn't used to it, so I completely messed up. However, it then turned into a really good friendship. I coached him for like 5 years. He got completely passed off from his cardiologist and everything. He actually bought me my interview outfit for the gym in London, UP, that obviously you know about. And it was a steep learning curve. So with the communication side of things, being 16, having a bit of an attitude against people that I perceived to be, you know, senior, I guess, when you relate it to school teachers, it was a real big learning curve. But genuinely, like, meeting him was probably one of the, I hate sounding really cheesy, but like one of the most pivotal things I probably could have done, like, you know, accidentally. And yeah, learned loads from him. And I guess maybe he rubbed off some of the business stuff on me. Okay.
And how did you, because you mentioned obviously you missed it, right? How did you recover from that? Because obviously it's difficult. Let's say if you miss it and you're like, damn, this is it. He may just sack me from this. I'm not going. He may go to the next trainer who's on the gym floor he perceives equally maybe as good. How did you just then suddenly recover? Do you just, yeah, look, I owned it, and then, you know, I'm not going to mess up?
Yeah, totally that. It was just like, I think part of me didn't really think he was ever going to turn up. It was like my first client. So the idea of landing a client, and a client at that level that was going to pay me, at the time, it was like £25 an hour, which to me felt like huge. It was like pretty much 5 times what I was earning per hour. You know, I was on like, I guess, £6 an hour or something like that. So to have this guy pay that per session to me was nuts. I was like, he's probably going to change his mind. And I guess I just didn't really take it seriously. So when I realized that I messed the session up, you know, I was just super apologetic to him, explained to him that, hey, I'm trying to break into this industry. I've never had to schedule anything like out of a shift and travel back into the gym, and my bad, but give me a shot. And yeah, end up just like a great relationship. You know, my ex and I used to go over to his house every Boxing Day for like 4 years. His 50th birthday party was like a 25-person guest list. He invited me to that. So it was, you know, ended up a really good friendship. And yeah, it was a big learning curve. He definitely could have gone with another trainer. Thankfully, he didn't.
That's amazing though. Fast forward now, I want to go towards like, let's say 5 years into your career, into your personal training career. And obviously you're a lot better trainer. You're still relatively young for your age. At what point did you then realize, look, I won't say good enough for this gym, but like I could do better? Because I remember, you're probably there for a long period of time and you're like, I need to now transition somewhere in order to have an upgrade in my career. And obviously you mentioned a UP there. At what point did you know, look, I need to go to this place?
Believe it or not, and I really don't want to sound arrogant, it was other trainers that worked alongside me that were a bit older. It was like, I was like 21, 22 at this point. Early 20s. There were other trainers that were like in their 30s. I can remember like a few off the top of my head. And I remember them just saying to me, like, you're wasted here. Like the results you're getting your clients, the levels of details that you go into with nutrition, the studying that you're doing, they're like, you don't belong in K2 Leisure Centre in Crawley. No offense if anybody's listening from there.
We've been there as well, actually, K2. I remember when.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Yeah. It was actually like other trainers that I respected would just tell me that, hey, we're just average trainers. We train Gen Pop clients. We get them, we make them feel a little bit better. But you're coming in here and getting people like life-changing transformations that we haven't seen before. You should go work in London. And then on Instagram, I'd seen Nick, obviously the owner of UP, just looked at the results that they were getting and was like, oh my God. And back then, UP to me would be the equivalent of, I don't even watch football anymore, but like, it's the equivalent of, United or whatever. It was like playing for the big leagues. UP from the outside as a trainer looking in was like, oh, wow. And I remember the position that I went in at UP, I just thought, right, I'll just throw my hat into the ring. And I think I got told there was something like 180 applicants for that one job. There was like multiple stages to it. And I remember one of the stages was they wanted you to pick a diet type and break down the studies behind it, the mechanism of action involved. They wanted you to put together like a intra, post-workout supplement protocol and justify the research behind it. And I'd never been to uni. Like, I basically felt like I have one less GCSE than everybody else. So I didn't even do A levels. Yeah. So all these people vying for this position that had studied sports science and so on. And I went old school. I remember I used to collect Muscular Development magazine, and I had like hundreds of copies under my bed. And I remember there was this section in it every month that I couldn't get my head around, but it was like this research section where doctors, a PhD, would break down diet things. So I went through like every issue of Muscular Development that I had. I found every single one that in this section had referenced low carb dieting or ketogenic dieting, and just did my best to try and interpret it. And somehow, that combined with had to go and like train their head of sales and stuff like that, managed to get in there. So semi-blagged it, if I'm honest.
Men's Health used to do the same thing, right? I think I remember if you open out magazines, it would have like how to get shredded in 12 weeks, and they would have like why eggs are bad for you, or something. It'll be like why eggs are good for you, and then have like a little excerpt on it, or it might even creatine. It'll be like, here's studies on creatine 1999 et al. Or whatever, and that's it pretty much. I remember that.
Yeah, I didn't even know what et al. Meant at the time. I didn't have a clue. So I'm just like copying and pasting these URLs and the names of studies and stuff into Google, and just doing my best to, some of them have got like paid things in front of them, and just fucking blagged it, and it paid off.
Yeah, thank God. And then obviously you're at UP, and then things obviously develop there in itself, right? Like you kind of, I guess you get there and you realize, okay, I'm actually good enough and I'm getting the most amount of results, right? Like talk us through your experience in, working, because a lot of people don't know, some people don't know that you were a personal trainer. I think where you are now, and obviously I've known you for a while, but like you were a personal trainer, obviously you worked at the top, in the gyms, and you got the best results out there. So talk us through like that transition and what you learned, and obviously coaching others.
Yeah, really good one. So a lot of people now, especially like some students, on the OTE, on my mentorship program, they only see the tip of the iceberg. I think they think I've always been doing this business thing, whereas actually I was on the gym floor from 16 for 11 years. And, yeah, when I went to UP, I remember thinking, right, now I'm back to being like a small fish in a big pond. These trainers are going to be so much better than me. And I'll be honest, when I first sat in on the team meetings, I was kind of like mind blown. Like I thought they were talking Japanese. And I was thinking like, am I cut out for this? What I soon realized, and maybe this will come to bite me on the ass if any of them listen to this, is they were just fucking, can I swear on this podcast? Is this like, okay.
Yeah, we swear all the time.
Yeah, they were just fucking regurgitating just shit from courses that they'd been on that they didn't really understand, and then their mind would change every few weeks. Whereas I knew that I had like my way of doing things that worked, and it did not fit with UP initially. Like they were all set on this low carb thing, and it just like time and attention, like timed reps, 3 seconds this, 2 seconds that, and I tried it all, and it just reduced my intensity. So I remember having debates with like some of the head trainers there, and it got pretty heated at times. But the one thing in the end was they just couldn't deny my results. Like, I really hate sounding arrogant, but genuinely, I came in and from day one, I was getting clients pretty good results. And in year 2, 3, and whatever was arguably like between Akash and I in the whole business, our transformations were top 1 and 2. We just had our way of doing things, and Akash and I end up being on the same page with training people. We had very similar training philosophies that actually Akash influenced me quite a lot with, and then I kind of imparted my nutrition philosophies and supplementation philosophies and psychology on Akash, and we just did things a bit different. That was the other trainers, I could see them watching what we were doing with our clients and wanting to bitch and moan and run to the seniors, but our clients were getting stronger than every client. They were getting leaner than every client. They were the ones that weren't looking like prisoners of war at the end of it, and were actually getting like transformations where they held muscle tissue. So it was relatively quick. It was a steep learning curve the first 6 to 12 months, and then once I got into year 2, I was like, yeah, these trainers aren't that great. I can hold my own here.
Yeah, I think so you just realize that the basics just work. I don't need to kind of chop and change too much. But again, I think obviously it's interesting because they would have. Do you think in hindsight they could have said, okay, let's let him go because he's now going to change the whole culture, or was it, actually he's getting results and it's working? Because sometimes it could be, if you look at sporting terms, right? Like even if it's a high performer, they may say he's not within our culture. We're going to let him go because of this. Do you think that would have happened potentially?
No, because the culture ended up changing to a degree. So to be fair to UP and to Nick, the culture of UP was all about getting results. It softened a bit towards the end of my time leaving in terms of, he's trying to scale a business. Naturally, the quality of trainer, very hard to maintain when you scale it. But I know that, Nick's eyes, as faulted as I think the guy can be, and I'll happily say that on here, he genuinely was after results. He wanted you to get results, and he was behind trainers that got them, which is why I think, he didn't try and micromanage Akash or myself. Mm-hmm. And then what we found that ended up happening is gradually some of the trainers started moving away from having to do the whole count 3 seconds on an eccentric, pause here for 2 seconds, fuck all that bullshit. Yeah. So actually, I'd say that the culture, to be fair to UP, stayed the same, and it was still very results focused. And I think they actually become a bit more open-minded. And I remember even talking to Nick once in front of everybody at Up Mayfair. And I said, when they were talking about this, the time and attention, I was like, Nick, like I've seen the videos and the photos of you training at muscle, like you were jacked. Like you did not get that way with a 4-second eccentric. And Nick admitted, like, okay, actually, yeah, like back in the day, I trained hard and heavy compound movements, and now I find this maintains. And yeah, so yeah, kind of interesting.
Change your culture then, effectively, which is quite cool to hear. But and then obviously you mentioned Akash there as well, and you guys both obviously founded RNT Fitness. Mm-hmm. How did that come about? Because obviously that's completely different in the sense where it's online, and again, online is hugely popular right now. Let's say 5 years ago, it's something that it's quite scary because you're thinking, how am I going to get clients? One-to-one is you're you said it right there. It's the pinnacle, right, of one-to-one training. How did that transition come about?
Yeah, it's a good one. So I think two things led to it. I think the first thing is that I had actually been doing online coaching since I was like 18. But like there was no training apps available. I got photos on my Facebook memories. I shared them on Instagram a while ago. Yeah, of me like being in bed, like handwriting somebody's macros and then typing it in an email. There were no onboarding sequences. There were no, the weekly check-ins were completely different. There were no welcome packs. Like this didn't exist. How it came about was, I remember I would be on different bodybuilding forums and giving people advice, and there were just people across the country that couldn't, come and train with me in person. So we would just liaise via email and phone. And they would just send me like a direct debit every so often, or, some money. And so it was technically online coaching, but it didn't really have this cool name. And,
you didn't have
nobody else. Yeah. It's really funny because not many people were doing it. And then I remember being sat at UP once, and I was looking after some of my private clients. And I remember one of my ex-colleagues, Nick Daniel, saying to me, where would you like to be in the next 5-10 years? And I said to him, honestly, I was like, I'm an introvert. I don't like small talk. My dream would be sat in a big ass comfy office chair at a desk, getting my clients' results online. I don't want to be stood with people anymore. And he just started laughing and like, oh yeah, I could imagine you doing that actually. Like, yeah, you'd suit that. So I think that was like an initial thing, just like a throwaway comment. And then from there, it was that Akash and I obviously got on really well, very similar philosophies. We started at similar times, both arguably quieter compared to some of the other coaches. So we seemed to just get on quite well, very similar wavelength. We had started teaching for UP. So we were teaching their trainers. So like we got flown out to Hong Kong to do some seminars and stuff like that. And I remember us speaking to Nick and asking him. So I remember I took Nick aside once, went for a walk with Nick around London when I was like 22. And I said to him, I really enjoy this, but what's next? And he goes, what do you mean? And I said, well, what about when I'm your age and I've got a kid or whatever? Like I don't want to be stood on the gym floor counting some guy's reps at that age. Like what's the progression? And of course, he's looking after his business. So he's like, oh, you got loads of time, right? You don't need to worry about that yet. Just talk me out of it. And then at this point, this is now like a few years later, we'd done these seminars at Hong Kong and we got talking to Nick and asking him like, what's next pay-wise? And he said, you're capped. He's like, I already arguably pay you guys too much. You're on the highest percentages. And, I competed, Akash had competed. We'd already pushed to be more than just trainers by doing these educational seminars. We both just have a progressive mindset, and getting told that we were basically just going to tread water for the next 10 years just didn't sit well with us. So, we got talking and we're like, we'd love to initially, and this is just full transparency, like this will probably end up, I'll end up getting messages from this, no doubt, probably hear from Nick's legal team. We all know how that went last time.
We're not big enough yet in terms of the podcast, so you should be all right.
What's the sorry?
We're not big enough yet with the podcast yet, so we should be all right.
Honestly, I really don't care. Bring it on, I say. Yes. So we would have been more than happy to have done something. We just wanted something more. We saw that there was a market for this online thing, and we asked Nick if we could train higher level people. We put like a business name together and said, can we do it alongside working at UP? We won't let it affect our work. He said no. If we could have done it at the same time of working at UP, maybe I'd still be there. But it was just the fact that he'd said no. We felt limited. So we were like, okay, well, this is scary because we're arguably earning possibly some of the most money out of most trainers in the UK and very comfortable. And at this, from the outside, great company to work for. But let's take a risk. So we started looking into like setting up our own gym, but then we looked at the overheads, cost of insurance, equipment leasing. Both of us being more introverted, it didn't really appeal. The fact that I lived obviously towards Gatwick, Akash lived Northwest London. One of us would have had to have traveled depending on the location. And then we thought, right, why don't we do something that feeds into the whole fact that we're already quiet and we don't like small talk. We can do this from wherever we want. So you can do it from your house, I can do it from mine, or we can do it from a coffee shop, or we can go on holiday. And work with more people ultimately, because there's not the same cap in terms of client numbers. You know, online it's way more time efficient.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was it. We got talking about that, agreed that at some point we would want to leave UP and cut the apron strings there and just go it alone, and hope that something happened and went well. And if it didn't, you know, so be it. And genuinely best decision of my life, right? I wouldn't be here now otherwise, in the position that I'm in. I remember my parents freaking the hell out, like, oh my God, you know, you're a trainer in London working with, you know, city workers, lawyers, bankers, IT consultants. You're earning all this money, and why do you want to give it up? And I was like, because I don't want to keep getting up at 4:30 in the morning and getting on a train into London. And because I want to continue to earn more money. So yeah, that's what led us to taking the plunge.
How did, you know, let's say first year of RNT, how did it feel? Like, did you expect that level of success, or did you think, you know what, you know, we'll see what happens. If we get a couple of clients, great. As long as, you know, I'm earning the same as probably London, and then, you know, I'll be quite comfortable. Did you expect that level of growth, especially it's all online, and, you know, you mentioned you're introverted as well, right? So you have to actually be online at the same time, like your actual personality has to show. So it's also like that. Did you find that different? Like, you're thinking, okay, you know what, I'm introverted, but I have to give myself out there as well. So how was that transition?
Yeah, it was nerve-wracking. So neither of us really knew whether we could do it or not. We just knew that we still lived with our parents at the time. I think I just had a mortgage accepted or something like that, but I was still technically living at my parents or something like that. We both saved, you know, a few months worth of income just in case. We both knew that ultimately, you know, we could go and work for another gym if we had to. But no, we did not know how well it would go. So for starters, we were both quiet, as you mentioned. Secondly, we didn't have big followings on social media. Akash had like maybe 700 followers. I maybe had like 1,100. It was not a huge amount. Neither of us really understood business at that point. And our goal was, my goal was, if I can earn what I'm doing at UP in London, but earn that, you know, from my own business, from a coffee shop or something like that, I'd be more than happy. What's interesting is I still have the email from Akash to me with our initial forecasts of the first year. And my reply says to him, I can't remember the figure. I want to say it's like 14 grand or something like that. He did all these forecasts and he comes back, and all I remember is my reply to him is like, have I read this right? Is it, you know, X amount, whatever it was? And I said, I need to go and ask for a part-time job at M&S. You know, and started joking from that. And I was like, we better grow this thing. I can't live on that. I've just come from London earning X, and, you know, we need to make this work. So yeah, we totally didn't have any big expectations. You know, Akash's forecast was, something like, I think it was 12 grand a year each was his prediction. My hope was just match what I'd earned in London. And then of course it snowballed into being, you know, quite a bit more.
Yeah, and again, the growth was obviously quite crazy. I think you guys hired a trainer maybe 6 months in, I believe.
Yeah. We, you know, had no intentions when we launched it of it ever being a team. We just thought it would just be Adam and Akash. And then we quickly realized that, you know, we were getting people great results, and we were genuinely giving a really great service, arguably better than, you know, 90% of other online coaches in the UK at the time. I'd put something together pretty unique for us, the hybrid nutrition tracker, which I now kick myself for, that I could have made so much money off of that. That was a bad business mistake. It just grew. And then I remember we originally said that like our capacity would be, I think we agreed on like 60 clients each. And then we end up at like 70 clients each. Then we end up at 80 clients each. Then we end up at like 90 clients each. And then we end up around the 100 client mark each. I think I had like 94, 95. I think Akash had like 100, 101, 102. And it was at that point that I said to him, like, we can't, you know, we're going to start dropping the ball here. We need to bring on somebody. And then, we brought somebody on that was a mistake.
And obviously the team grew, and then obviously you transitioned away from RNT, I believe, mid 2018-ish towards like, you know, September.
I remember the weekend well. I split from my ex-girlfriend on the Saturday, and then split from Akash at 9 a.m. on the Sunday. So it was like, it was a weekend in September. I remember it.
That'd have been a crazy Monday, right?
Yeah. I was in Dubai by then. I split with Akash at 9 a.m. I pulled out my phone and went on ba.com and booked a flight to Dubai that evening, like that same day, like 10 o'clock that night. I was on the night flight and landed in Dubai by myself the next day, sat next to the swimming pool going, oh shit. Like, just built this pretty big business, probably on track in year 2 to do like $500,000 or so. And I've just walked away from it.
Like, how was that? Like, let's say obviously you moved away from it, but, and again, having seen like what you've built now, did you think, were you just going to go, look, I'm just going to go to online training, do my own thing? I know you were always quite passionate about helping other trainers. I remember even when I was there, like you were like, okay, let's do it this way, let's do it that way. You kind of read like McDonald's book or go with this situation. Did you have that in your mind, or did you feel, actually, what, let me just see what goes on from here. Let me just have some brainstorming in Dubai, and then from there, it is what it is.
Yeah, so I knew that I wanted to do something with coaches. So just as I was leaving RNT, we had set up this thing called the RNT Academy. Mm-hmm. And the goal of that was to coach trainers into being better trainers and to maybe give them an idea or two as to how they could maybe land a few clients. So one of my agreements with Akash, full transparency, I really did not push on my buyout fee. I just took it. It was, in retrospect, I could have pushed for a lot more. Mm-hmm. My big play was, I said to him, yep, sure, let's agree on this, but I want the students from the RNT Academy, I want to take that over. And that was my big play, because that then has turned into the OTE, which now has 450 active people or something like that on it. So yeah, that was, I knew I wanted to work with trainers. I didn't ever think it was going to turn into a proper business mentorship though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because a lot of people see, like I said, everyone's known you now, and obviously I see Facebook ads and stuff. And I'm like, that's Adam here again. But just seeing that transition from like how you built the OTE. Let's talk about the early days, because I think obviously you mentioned, I remember you mentioned it once, like there was no name to this. And you mentioned it quite often in webinars as well. You're like, look, just guys, get on with it. You don't need to have the perfect logo. You don't need to have the perfect name. You didn't even have a name, and you still, create a course, basically content, and you just got out there. What was the early struggles of OTE, or you can call it the online program?
Yeah. So, well, the first struggle was, it had no identity. So there was no name, no logo, no website, no fancy logo, color scheme. So it had no identity. So that was the first kind of struggle. But I'm a big fan of just fucking jump and pull the parachute on the way down. So, I had a few people interested in this RNT Academy. I can't remember how many people it was. Maybe it was like 15 or 16 I took. Yeah. And then I set myself a goal of, I'm going to do this first intake of whatever the hell it's going to be called. Don't even know what I'm going to teach yet. And I want 30 people on it. So of course I went on socials. I didn't have a big following of trainers because, I'd been coaching Gen Pop. But I just fucking hustled and managed to, I think I got like 32 people on it. And yeah, the slides literally said like to be named in the corner. And I remember saying, I'm going to bribe you guys. Whoever can come up with a name for this thing, if anybody picks it, I'm going to transfer you, your entire course fee back plus some extra. So that was probably the first thing. The biggest struggle though was probably imposter syndrome, looking at the Bedros Keuilians, the Craig Ballantynes, these guys in the marketing space that, were doing like multi-7 figures and stuff. And at that point, I'd built the business with Akash to do 6 figures, but I wasn't playing at the 7-figure mark at that point. Mm-hmm. So, initially I had that hesitancy. Are people going to think, who the fuck is this guy? What right have I got? And then, and you've heard me probably no doubt say this on the OTE, I read this book, Expert Secrets, called Russell Brunson, and he tells this story in it from the film Catch Me If You Can, I'll really just cut to the punchline, which is the main character ends up like posing as a lecturer or a professor or something, teaching something. Let's say it's advanced economics. I can't remember what the subject was. Teaches something for a couple of semesters, eventually gets caught. And when he finally gets caught, they say to him, how the hell did you teach this for 2 semesters and none of the students know? Like, you've never studied this. And he goes, oh, it's simple. He goes, the textbook that the students read, I read the same one. I just read it 2 chapters ahead of them and I teach it back. And it was just this light bulb moment where I was like, I don't need to be trying to get people to 7 figures. Right? I'm appealing to me a year ago, 2 years ago.
Yep.
If somebody had come to Akash and I and gone, guys, I know how to put a blueprint in place to get you off the gym floor and get you to your first 2 to 3K months online, we'd have been all over that. So when I had that realization, it was all good from there. And I was just like, I don't have to be the best business coach at this point. I'm going to evolve over time. For now, if I just double down and focus on doing the bit that I have done, which is successfully come away from the gym floor, build an online business from scratch, get clients amazing results, earn okay money, have freedom, then I can teach it back.
I remember, I think I was in one of the first ones, because obviously I was a relatively new trainer then. I remember being on it. I remember the course content. It was, one of them was psychology, business, and then you did like talk about carbs, importance of carbs. Do you remember that? I think it's because you taught it live, and it was very, you went with the science route, and I think you completely obviously didn't change it now. And again, seeing the growth of that over 3-4 years later is been truly remarkable. And then obviously the OT blew up. Like when I say blew up, obviously I've known, like I said, 450 people literally active in there. Did you expect that? And again, like, how did you feel with that growth over the last couple of years?
The growth hasn't kicked in. It still hasn't realized. It still hasn't sunk in. Like I'm still that little twat from Crawley. That's how I look at myself. I might be living somewhere else now, and the OTE has X amount of people, but to me, I'm still just Adam. And it's funny, I wake up some days and I'll talk to Sandy and be like, that's my other half, and I'll talk to her and be like, can you believe it? Like me, I've got like 400 people that are interested in what I say. Kind of crazy. So no, never thought it would grow to this stage. I probably, my goal was if I could do like 30, 35 people each 10-week intake, which is the model that you're referencing that it started at. If I can do that and I can do 4 a year, great. Help 150 trainers or so throughout the year. That's pretty cool. And then I just got bitten by the bug. That's why it went business focused. Is initially it was 80-20, 80% being about being a better coach, nutrition, training, supplementation, client results. 20% was business. We had 2 lectures out of 10 on business 1, business 2. It was that I was getting more questions from the students about the business stuff. And then B, I just massively geeked out on it. I guess if I'm honest, out of spite, I wanted to prove a point to Akash. Like, even if he doesn't know, it was just like an internal thing, I guess, that I'd built this thing. He always thought he was said he was the more business one of the 2. And I just took it at the time. It's not until I left RNT that I'm like, hold on, like this idea, the logo, the strap line, the message, the way that we coach people, the bringing on staff, the structure for the staff, the setting up the podcast, the YouTube channel, getting clients to do photo shoots, all of these things, the nutrition tracker, genuinely were my ideas. And I just had this little light bulb moment of like, oh, maybe I'm not that bad at this business thing. And then I thought, right, let's turn something that, I was told by him was a weakness and that he was the business one. Can I turn this into a strength? And then can I build something that will get to the same level as where I left off at RNT? And that was really my goal. I remember my first business mentor, he said, what's your goal? And I was like, just want to get back to doing what I had done at RNT and get back to that point so I can prove it to myself, like, I can fucking do this. And then, so I guess you could say it was grown initially out of scarcity and, negativity, and then just eventually hit this turning point where it's just like, wow, I'm having fun with this and I'm doing it the right way. And here we are now.
Do you think your love for business, you mentioned there, like, proving a point, do you think where your love for business has come through? Because obviously you've now built 2 e-commerce businesses, which are doing phenomenally well, right? So do you think that's where it's come from? Or is it just like, look, I actually quite enjoy, because you went from like school, you're like, actually, I couldn't sit still. Now you can probably sit for a couple of hours and like map out a business and think, okay, no, do it this way, do it that way. You're mentoring trainers now on how to build their business up. So do you think that's where it came from?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think I just like creating and building. So, previously it was my body and clients' bodies, where it was like, it was a project. Where are the weak areas? Where are the strong areas? What can we do now to, especially because I had a bit of either a photo shoot or like a comp prep angle, is what I enjoyed. So it's like a project of how can we make the best piece of art. And then when I started doing this business thing and I started getting really passionate about it, it again was like a project. How can I build this? How can I make the tweaks? I think that's what I enjoy, is just problem solving. Being honest, behind the scenes, we've had a real curveball this last like week here. I throw a pity party for like a few hours, and then it's like, okay, let's fucking fix this. And then I thrive off of it. And I'm in here, my little man cave, like, pen, paper, and coming up with ideas. And I think that's what's really got me involved and interested in the business side of things, is it's just another creative problem solving outlet.
What do you think like mistakes business owners make? Like obviously there's gonna be loads, obviously. You've probably made a few. If there's a business owner right now listening to us in any field, what are some of the biggest ones?
Yeah, I'd say number one, just because we're on the Akash RNT theme, if you're in a business partnership, not always, but and we got told this and we were just massively naive and, rose tinted glasses. We got warned that if you're in a business partnership that's born out of a friendship, doesn't usually end well. And we were like, no, we've been best friends for like 5 years. And now Akash and I don't speak, which is, it's unfortunate. So one thing I would say is, if you are in a business partnership, make sure you've got a contract in place. I hate to be really boring. This is just a side one that we had one, fortunately. But most business partnerships, they just don't end well. At some point, one will typically resent the other. So that's just a quick one, because we're on the subject of that. But I think the biggest mistakes I see is shiny object syndrome. So I think the one thing that I'm good at is I always bang on about that whole like one thing. And it's just been such a theme for me, that I can be, I'm part of different business masterminds myself, and I could be on a call and they might teach 6, 7, 8 different things. I'll jot down one and I'll just sit back and just think, how can I implement it? And when I look at the Zoom screen, I see everybody else trying to jot down every idea, and then they're in the group the weeks afterwards going, oh my God, this thing, I'm trying to do this and that. Whereas for me, I'm like, figure out one thing, rinse and repeat it, master it, then move on to the next. So I think too many people take on too many things, they spin too many plates, they become not very good at any one thing. So I think that's a big one. Bit of a wanky one, but beliefs. Yeah. Like, there are people on the OTE, on my mentorship, I'll be honest, I do my best to try and deal with it, that sign up, but they don't truly believe they can build a business. And the analogy that I've used is like, if I was asking you to go and land on fucking Mars and, go repopulate there, like Elon Musk is attempting to want to do, sure, I can get why you'd be skeptical and you might think that won't happen. But if you just look around and see so many people that are not particularly special building online businesses, you put in a bit of elbow grease and you pay attention for long enough, it's going to happen. So when you can't, when you think you can't do something, it's just take a step back and go, is this like a next level belief? Like, are you trying to do something that nobody else has done before? Then if not, yeah, you've got every right to be skeptical. But if you can look around and you can see other people doing it in front of you very clearly, step the fuck up and just get shit done, basically, instead of, bitching and moaning and giving up. So that would be one. And then the last one would be chasing cash instead of problem solving, and making everything about the finances. Now, don't get me wrong. I know that that's easy to say when you're earning okay money. It's easy to say like, oh, don't focus on the money. Mm-hmm. But genuinely, once your bills are covered, you've got a little bit left over. If you make your sole focus solving the problem of the person you're trying to work with in business, you just cannot go wrong. You'll have slow months. Maybe it grows slowly initially. But if you like really dial in on that and just get relentless on fixing problems and never getting complacent and always trying to think what's next, how can I make this easier? How can I reduce friction for my clients? The cash follows. So yeah, I think those would be a few mistakes that I see.
I think for entrepreneurship, it's all about problem solving, right? Like that's when, you know, especially in our business, the body transformation world, if you get a certain amount of results, finances will then get taken care of, in my opinion. Like I've never seen anyone who gets amazing results and then suddenly are terrible with finances, unless, you know, there's odd occasions, but generally we've never seen that. I don't think you've probably seen that, right?
Why do you think I say to everybody on the OT that if body composition, I know there's going to be potentially trainers listening to this, that they have the whole body image. I won't use transformation images, like all the power to you. Great. But for those that are cool with using transformations, those that are in the body composition space, my big thing that I say in the OT is I want you to aim to get 10 dramatic transformations.
Yeah.
Just as that process of solving 10 people's problems to a high degree, by the time you get to that 10th one, your bank balance is going to be in a really bloody good place.
That's the minimum, to be honest. I think people should be aiming.
I mean, I'd like more, but you know, we have people that come in that, you know, don't have a transformation yet. So for me, if, you know, over your first 12 months as an online coach, if you can knock out 10 solid transformations going into your second year, you'll be fucking golden.
Two last questions to kind of end this podcast. One of them is like someone who's listening to this podcast right now, who is a personal trainer, who's probably new to the industry. What advice would you give them? Obviously, we've had COVID-19, right? And that's kind of threw a massive curveball, and it's probably fast-tracked the online world quite quickly. So what advice would you give to someone who is now like, I've just qualified tomorrow, you know, maybe in the gym floor, I also want to kind of transition online. What's your thoughts on that? What advice would you give someone?
I say, listen to my story about when I got that mentorship out there without, you know, thinking that I was the best business coach at the time, without having anything really, no substance behind the brand. I didn't wait for the perfect logo. So first thing is start now in terms of just getting yourself out there, just dial back. Can I help one person? Am I ahead of somebody else's weight loss journey? If we're talking weight loss, for example, don't try and be the best coach. Don't try and have the best onboarding system. Just fucking start. Also, and this is whether you work with myself or another business coach, like if you are on the fence about investing and working with a coach, trust me, just do it. And like people on here will have you might even be in a different space altogether. But what I can say is every time, and you know, Akash and I, we invested into a mentor when we started RNT. When I split from RNT, as soon as I had a bit of cash tucked away, first thing I did, I invested into somebody, and I still do it. Like I'm part of 3 different masterminds now. So that's genuinely, like, I don't know anybody on this podcast, so you're probably gonna be irrelevant to me. It's just, if at some point you know somebody that has walked where you want to go, see if you can pay them some money, and just don't delay it. Like the thing I get said to me is when students start, they're always like, I wish I did this earlier. So first thing is just start now in terms of getting yourself out there. Second thing is that if you have got cash tucked away, remember, you're never going to save yourself wealthy. Like, it just doesn't work. So invest that in a good coach, whatever niche, space, industry you're in. It will pay off if you get the right person. And then the other one is integrity. Super cliche, but I'm bringing this one up because we've been talking about Akash. So, you know, if you look at where RNT is now, maybe I'm wrong, but from the outside, from what I've been told, kind of sounds like it's in a similar spot to when I left it a couple of years ago. I believe when I left it, there was 4 or 5 coaches, peaked up at 11, 12 coaches. Now it's back down to 4 or 5 coaches. Sure, maybe there's some more clients in the business, but less coaches because everybody's fucking pissed because, you know, there's no integrity in terms of valuing the trainers. So to me, if you start running a business, first you need integrity with like the clients you take on. Don't take people on that you know are going to be a bad fit. It just never works out. It doesn't do you any good. That short-term hit of cash is never worth the bad rep that a bad fit can give you. So for me, I'll be on sales calls with people, and if we're just on a different wavelength, I'll just politely say, hey, I'm going to cut this call here. really don't mean it personally, but I just sense there's going to be friction. It's only going to get worse. I'd rather not take your money. Let's have a brainstorm, see if there's another coach out there that might be a better fit. Sure, in the short term, some people take it, offensively, but they know long term, I could have taken their money and sweet talked them into it. So firstly, from a client point of view, I think it's have good people in your world that are going to vibe with your service and your personality. And then you'll attract more. And then the other side of it is with trainers. Like, you and I wouldn't be on this podcast now if Akash made you feel valued, most likely. Mm-hmm. I would argue that, and again, I know that you'll probably just have to go, which is fine. But, let's be honest, when I left RNT, not in a bitchy way, but I had nothing to do with you guys. I was just like, shut the door on that, wish everybody well. I'm just going to go keep my head down with the OTE. And then over the past 6 months, so like 9 coaches now, I think, have come to me. Yeah, they've come through, and I hadn't, I had never spoken to anybody at RNT because I just didn't want to be reminded of it, because, it hurt that I built this thing and had to walk away. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have contact with anybody. And then just one by one, people have left RNT, come with, over to the OT, and I'm helping people build their own businesses. My point is that if Akash, and again, maybe he'll listen to this, if Akash was doing things the right way as a leader, compensating people well, making them feel valued, building a strong team, chances are most of you would probably still be there, because it would be cushy, right? You get clients given to you on a plate, pick up a nice paycheck, work from home, no stress of having to post bullshit content, no worrying about client drop-offs, because that Akash will fill your pipeline. Same as us at UP in the end, if we'd have felt valued and there was scope to continue to grow, we probably would have stayed. But we, the value slipped, nowhere to go, we jumped ship. It's exactly what's happened to RNT. So I guess this message is just for those of you, if you are listening, you do have a business, look after your staff. Like, they hang around and it builds community. I'm pretty sure as a consequence of a lot of the trainers leaving RNT, I don't know. I don't follow Akash or anything, but I'm pretty sure, just based on experience with business, that he would have hemorrhaged clients off the back of that, because people are like, I was here for the vibe, for the community, for the chemistry. I'm not even saying like one particular trainer. I'm saying just the chemistry that you build as a team, that it filters down and clients would pick up on that. So yeah, maybe a bit of a deep one again, but I think integrity, for anybody going into business, both with clients, staff, massively important.
100%. And then the last question, where do you see the industry in the next, I was going to say 10 years, but the industry just literally got fast tracked probably in the last 2. So where do you see it in, like, let's say 5 years time? Do you see majority going all online, or do you still see the one-to-one game still being around? Like, where do you see the industry going?
Yeah, I think one-to-one will always be around. Just like hairdressers, right? People want to go have the haircut. People are going to want to get in shape and go shoot the shit with the trainer. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just one of those things that I think most people are just synonymous. Go to the gym, get in shape. PT will always be around. But I do think that since social media, since COVID, clients are now way more aware of online coaching. And they now start to realize that, hey, I can either go to my local gym that I travel 15 minutes to, and I have the choice of 6 PTs on that gym floor. Having watched those 6 PTs train their clients, none of them impressed me. And I would have just had to pick, like, let's just be real, in a lot of gyms, the quality of PTs, and I know I'm generalizing, of course you get some standouts, but there are a lot of really bad PTs in a lot of gyms. So typically the choice was like, well, I'm just gonna have to pick the least worst of the bunch, the one that seems the friendliest, laughs the most, greets me on the way into reception, regardless of their training skills. Now, with the online coaching, clients have got a choice. Yep. They can now choose out of the thousands of coaches that are on social media and pick the one that their results resonate with, the ones that they like their message of, they follow their content, little quirks behind the scenes. you know, like Sopranos, you know, your t-shirt, like that sort of, like those sorts of little quirks that people pick up on. You can see in my background, the car, you know, in the background, it's clear that I'm a petrol head. So those small things that are like typically like subconscious, people will pick up on. They'll vibe with people and they know that now they can do it regardless of location, and they can now hire a better quality coach. So I think that's the difference between PT and online in the short term. Netflix versus Blockbuster sort of thing. People are going to be way more likely to go with an online coach that resonates with them. Longer term, AI. You know, like, I don't want to admit this because my job is, you know, building people's online coaching businesses, but I'd be really fucking naive if I was to think that big companies weren't plowing money into this. So I already know off the top of my head that like Gatorade, the sports drink US company, they're putting a lot of money into AI, wearables. There's a miracle carbon that you exercise in front of it, and I believe it tracks your exercise technique and feeds it back to you. It's got cameras built into the mirror. So you've got that. There's a company, I think in Singapore, that's doing it so you can wave your phone over food and it will scan it and work out the macronutrient density and stuff. So, you know, this is happening. And I don't think it's a huge worry if you're a good coach. So I think it will still be that thing where we want that human touch, that human element, if you're a good coach. So I won't name them, but there's another business coach in the UK scene that is pushing a certain type of training that basically you're training your clients to choose whether they check in with you or not. Now, from the trainer's point of view, they're in the Facebook group celebrating wins, going, I've got 46 clients on board, but only 4 of my clients this week checked in, so I've got the afternoon off. Genuinely, like, this is their badge of honor at the moment. I was talking about it with Nathan. Now, the reason why I would be fucking panicking, I don't think that's a good thing if 4 of your clients have chosen to check in. Sure, you get the afternoon off, but what you're doing is, hopefully you can still hear me at this point. I think my internet's just cut a bit, so the image is looking a bit grainy. I'm going to keep going just in case we're still live. So the bit that I would be looking at, can you hear, is it okay? Did it cut or is it okay?
No, I can hear you.
You can hear me, great. So the bit that I would be looking at is thinking, if I've sold this person on, let's say, a 12-week package or something like that, I've just taught them that out of 12 weeks, they only need me for 3 of them. Why are they going to renew? So to me, the best trainers, the ones that even when, you know, the technology and stuff really becomes pretty smart, it's going to be ones that build personal relationships with their clients, ones that truly hold their clients accountable, understand the nitty gritties, know when to push, when to pull, that a simple formula can't really, you know, figure out. So yeah, in the short term, PT versus online, no PT has to panic. I could sit here and try and scaremonger, you know, because I'm biased towards online, but PT is still going to be around for years. I just think that the client will be more open to working with an online coach if they don't think their PT is cutting it. I mean, we've even got coaches in the OTE that have clients that are genuinely paying a local trainer just to count their reps and make sure they don't get injured. So they're paying 2 trainers. They're paying my coaches to get high level programming and accountability, but then they're paying their local gym rat to just stand there and count to 12 for them. Like, you know, if you're not a great trainer, that's going to be you, which I can't imagine that being fulfilling. So that's that in the short term. In the long term, I do think technology, AI and stuff will continue to develop. I think, again, people will be more open-minded to using it. However, I think that if you're a great online coach and you build really good relationships, I think you'll do just fine and you'll thrive.
Yeah, I think I agree with AI, because I've seen, you know, a ton of articles recently pop out as well about, you know, where the fitness industry is heading towards. We've also seen a lot more, like, you know, straps coming out, you know, where data is getting tracked a lot more. You got the Oura Ring, you got Whoop. There's a lot happening now, and I think in 5 years' time we're probably gonna have more and more at the same time. But thank you for being on the podcast, Adam. It's been a pleasure. Where can people find you, especially someone who's new, is a trainer and wants to get in touch with you? What do they need to do?
Yeah, just on Instagram at Adam Hayley 1. That's the girl's way of spelling it, Hayley. So Adam Hayley 1. And then, yeah, just drop me a DM, say you've listened to this podcast, and more than happy to give you some advice and stuff like that.
Perfect. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed the podcast, obviously follow Adam, subscribe, and obviously share this with your friends and family. Until next time, take care.